Hello, so this is a new video. It's been a while since I made a last YouTube video due to moving from Mac to Windows and just trying to rig everything up together, get it all working. Now it's all working, so I'm back to gonna make more videos and make it more regularly now. Today is a bit different from the couple of videos I did before, where I usually talk about Nero bass and drum and bass. This time I'm going to be talking about trap. Kind of trap. I guess it's like melodic, modern sounding trap. In particular, I'm going to talk about mastering, simply because I feel there are some great videos out there, but it's always nice to see more mastering videos and see how each person does it. And the way I'm going to do it is actually quite different, and I'm going to explain a little, not really secret, but just what I feel about mastering, especially electronic music. Now, so to start off with, this is my effects chain, and it's really dead simple, and there's barely anything really happening in terms of mastering, and I'm going to walk you through it. So before we get started though, I'm just going to group all this up together and disable the effects so you can hear what it sounds like raw. I'm going to play different parts of the song. So that's what it sounds like without the master chain. And now this is with the chain switched on. So I'm just going to skip the intro to go straight to the build up. So that's what we've got for now, and so things that are different here. I mean, like, start off with dynamics are absolutely destroyed, and not because I'm trying to compete in the whole loudness wars, and because that doesn't really exist anymore. It's an old thing. It's just that what I feel is that this kind of sound, this is the kind of demand, the kind of master I want to give to it. Otherwise, I wouldn't give it to this. But so the style of what we're working with is sort of melodic, sort of a bit future trap, with very strange leads. But so the reason why the mastering process is so simple and doesn't require a lot of external plugins, and to be honest, the only external plugins I'm using is PSP's Xenon limiter and Rockzinger's span, and span obviously doesn't have any effects on the sound. It's just a frequency analysis plugin. And the reason for this is because the way I feel about mastering, what my experience for the past couple of years, is that a good master for me comes from a really good mixdown, and the good mixdown comes from a good arrangement and a very clean or smart or well thought out sound design. I'm not saying that this is a good arrangement. This is an okay arrangement. It's not exactly trap. I feel it doesn't really hold that trap vibe. It's just an experimentation with the sound, and it's very unadventurous, I'd say, in terms of exploring sound. It's very simple, and it's just simply for concepts and just see if I can do something like this. But but the point with this is that the sound design is actually quite clean. There's not a lot happening in the drop. For example, the first part is just pretty much the lead and the kit, which is the kick and the snare. The claps and the hi-hats come in a bit later. The arrangement is obviously, yeah, there's just not a lot happening here. I mean, like the most conflicts I would consider would be in the intro, where there was a sort of a old school sounding acoustic break, which plays accordingly with the trap beat. The reason why there would be any clash there is simply to do with transients, but it works fine. So that is the clean and so-called good arrangement, or well thought out or planned arrangement. Good mixdown or planned mixdown is obviously something which is just not too muddy and just not a lot happening in it. And when you've got a song that's not a lot happening, it's very easy to deal with, very easy to clean, very easy to adjust, and ultimately very easy to master. So with the mixdown, I don't really have a mixdown process. It's more of a as you work with the sound design, as you add instruments in, as you listen to it and you hear sounds which you want to put in, you adjust, you compress, you maybe, and you EQ and you design the sound and you mix it right there. There's no mixing stage. It's just you mix as you make the song. Which brings me down to the mastering. And because it's a very simple song, it's very easy for me to make a relatively good or decent, I'd say, master. This is not a great master, honestly. It's okay, it's acceptable. This is going to be a free download, so it's fine. So with that sort of hypothesis down, I'm going to go straight into explaining the plugins. So I wanted to go really simple. I can't seem to get Wave plugins working on this PC for some reason, and hopefully that issue will be resolved soon. But if you know how to work around with Ableton plugins and you know their weaknesses and their strengths, you can easily work with them. Ultimately, with electronic music, with what I found and what I've been experimenting with recently since I got a new computer, it's not so much about the plugins, it's about how you use them. Sure, trying out new plugins and buying new plugins, they're gonna allow new perspectives, and so you can apply those perspectives onto the old plugins you used to use, and you can do something new with them, and hopefully the quality will be a lot better. So to start off with, we have an EQ8, and here it's just very we have a cut on the mids. Well, first of all, it's been set to mid-side mode, so I'm EQing the mids and the sides separately. Mids of the stereo field, there's just a high pass that's just removing any rumble down there, which shouldn't really happen. Usually you don't have to do this, but I just felt that I wanted to do it at the time. Oh, that's the mids here. So the sides, which is a darker line, I got a shelf and lowered down the mids just to bring the mids a little more closer to the stereo field. Most people actually high pass it up to around, like, for example, yeah, around there, and that's fine in certain cases, but recently I feel that the less you do more cussing, the less cut you do, the better it generally sounds, really. And to be honest, sure, there's all the whole phasing problem, but I mean, to be honest, there shouldn't be any bass on the sides in the first place, or if there's a bit, it works well with the stereo field. As long as you center it, you listen to it and there's no phasing, there's not a problem. Onto the next plugin, we have the compressor, good old Ableton compressor. So ratio is set quite high, attack is very generous, release is quite short, threshold is just to see where we're heading. So we can see that the threshold is low enough to catch the peaks, and the point of this is for snap compression, really, just to give it punch. Glue compressor here, you can ignore the side tab. Very, very, very generous attack, 30 milliseconds, extremely short release, just to give it a bit more slightly unnatural but more energetic sound. I feel ratio set up high, threshold again to catch the peaks. And here's a little bit more interesting, I guess, multiband dynamics or multiband compression. I very, very rarely use this, but I felt that without it, I wasn't getting a lot of bass, and not enough. If anything, right now I might be getting a little too much, but I've already uploaded and stuff, and you know it's fine. It's a bassy song, so I didn't do any compression on the highs. I want to keep it very sort of natural. Mids, I felt that I wanted it to be a bit tighter. The lows, definitely a little tighter, but even there's quite a lot of release on that. And boosted it as an EQ really. It's very simple. Down the highs very slightly. It's all about tone shaping for the multiband dynamics. When you're working with multiband dynamics, if you're working with like waves on like C4, think of it more as a tone shaper or an EQ or even like a dynamic EQ, and then you'll start understanding the concept behind it easily. Here we have a glue compressor. What's special about this is that it's not really working as what the glue compressor is usually using. It works for. It's right now it's working as a limiter or saturator, and this being the attacker is set down to a very, very short time. It's low enough to act as a limiter, and the release is set to auto. Ratio up all the way. The threshold is not doing anything. However, the makeup is driving the signal since we've got soft clipping on, and I prefer this over the saturator because I feel the saturator adds a bit more mid harmonics. However, this adds more higher mid harmonics, and I just prefer the sound. And I think it sounds a bit more modern. OTT compressors irrelevant, and this is again a little interesting. However, it's very simple. Here I got PSP's Xenon, whatever you want to call it. I've got two of them actually. The first one is this is set to 100, and this is to allow the transients. So 100% of the transients of the songs are coming through. So that's going to do something to your loudness. But I just wanted the transients to pass through. I pushed it up a bit, just so then it caught the peaks and it cut off the peaks a bit. So there's less dynamics, and so what that meant is that it allowed me to really push it up here on the second instance, and that's where the main boosting comes in, main volume gain. Again, the transients are set to 100, and because I felt that the song, with the mixdown, if anything wrong with it, it wasn't quite as punchy as I was hoping, so I needed to let all the transients go through, even though it didn't really make much of a difference. These are different algorithms on how it read the transients. And so the C is pretty much soft clipping, I guess you can say, and A is hard clipping, and it's just to do with how fast it can catch the peaks and stuff. And with more punchy music, I go for A, simply. There's probably more to it than that, but not otherwise, no, not for me, not in this case. Leveler link for both of them, just there, not really doing anything. They're not doing anything. Also is set here just because I wanted to compare. And apart from that, that was it, really. The kind of sound. Wait, let me quickly play this. So this is the kind of shape which I was looking for. Now it's a little dip here, and that's just because there's no other percussion. And if I was to play a bit further, there'll be claps and hi-hats, and it'll fill up this space a bit more. But the general shape is pretty, not exactly flat, but pretty like slopes down a bit. A lot of people say this is what you want, and generally this is kind of what you want, I guess. But I've seen shapes which go down, up, and then reach back up here. So you've got quite a bit of highs and you've got quite a bit of lows, and there's not a lot of mids. You find that a lot in EDM, and it's a sound which I personally do not like at all. I don't really like EDM, as in like big room house, but that's just my personal preference. What you want to do is up to you. Generally, that is the shape of my music, especially the more modern and melodic music. Apart from that, there's nothing else to it. It's a very sort of simple yet very conceptual video, and I hope it's helped. and I hope you'll take something away from it. Thanks for watching, guys.